and this is my first class with you. So let me introduce myself first. I'm Dr. Piku Chaudhary, and as per the given schedule, I will be discussing MES 13 with you. A very warm welcome to all of you. And before we start, I would like to tell you two very valid and very important things. First of all, since this is my first class with you, or class in the sense contact program rather, because it is an ODL course, and it is, as you will all of you understand, it is not possible to go line by line, but we will discuss overall and clarify your doubts. And if you need any assistance in writing your this what do you call it, your assignments, then you can ask me freely. I can discuss it. But before that, I would like to ask you one question, since I don't know. Usually, there are different people from different states or different linguistic preferences. So I am speaking in English, but if you want me to speak in Hindi, Bengali, or a mixture of two or three languages, then please tell me right in the beginning. I have no problem with English or Hindi or Bengali. I can teach in any language you want. What language will be comfortable for you? Please tell me. Sir, English is maybe English is comfortable. Okay, okay, let me start teaching. If there is anyone who feels that one particular topic or area needs to be repeated in Hindi or in Bangla, please feel free to point out then and there. I have no problem. I will repeat once more in your preferred language. Okay. So, in MES 13, there are many blocks, but first of all, yes, this is one important thing. And the second important thing is that what would you like me to do? I can do an overall analysis of touching the most important modules and giving a picture overall by a general discussion so that you get a clear picture of what is there in MES 13 and the crucial points. Or alternatively, if you want me to discuss your assignments, you can tell me the questions. I don't have the assignments with me right now, but if you tell me the questions, I can help you out. So, what do you want? Ma'am, examination point of view. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Yeah, tell me. I'd like to request you that we are giving exam in the month of January. So time is short. If you discuss some important module or important things or tell us how to prepare MES 13, it will be great for us. Yes, ma'am. It will be helpful if you give us important topics for our exams. I understand, but let me give you one very genuine and very useful advice. You see, Ignou is an open university. We don't set papers, okay? So we are just the study center teachers who clarify doubts and teach you. From a wide teaching experience, we may have an idea as to what are the important areas as far as the topic is concerned. But from the exam point of view, from my experience, I think it is better to scan last 5 years question. And in Ignou, there is repetition, but the frequency is not very. So if you look at the last 5 years or 6 years question papers which are available on net, I guess you can form your own suggestions. Now you see, I have not seen last 6 years question papers because I did not know that I will be asked to give suggestions today. So I'm not prepared. So whatever I tell you may not match. Maybe I'm telling you that this topic is important. But when you go and scan the paper, you will see that the question has already come last year. So it may not be important for you. So it is better as yes. Yes, ma'am. Good evening. Yeah, good evening. Tell me. Yes, ma'am. You said just now that last 5 years questions, if we scan the last 5 years question, it will be helpful for us. Yeah, because you will get an idea as to what has already come. Then you can form a suggestion of your own. Because from our side, you see, I am just a teacher who has been allotted these classes. So academically, I am sound. I can help you out. But what you are saying, genuinely, from the exam point of view, what is important, what is not, what may come, what may not come. That kind of suggestion we don't have, And you can also look at your assignments. You can have an idea from there also. Okay.
Ma'am, is it 5 years question or 5 terms? Because 5 years means
Yes,
10,
I also
10
have the
terms
same
question.
question, ma'am. It is actually for both the sessions 5 years, or it is for the last December,
I know.
if we go back.
No, from I will give you one technique here. I don't know how far it will work. See, there are 2 exams per year, right? If I'm not very wrong.
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
And you are appearing for the January, that is December, January 1, right?
exactly, ma'am.
Right, right.
Had I been in your shoes, then I would have gone through, including June exams, I would have gone through last 6, 7 question papers. Then you will see there's a pattern. That is, I'm speaking from experience. You know, if you look at the last 5, 6 question papers, including June and December, okay, then I think you yourself will see what's the pattern. That is my belief, because I have to scan the papers a few years back due to some professional reason. I think you can understand the pattern of the question. It is not, there is no great variation, or it is not that in one term they are giving from North Pole, in the second term they are giving from South Pole. There is a pattern. If you just look at the last 5, 6 question papers, including June and December, I think you yourselves, as very adult and intelligent students, can catch the pattern, you know. That is my, I have another class with you. Pradeep Babu will take, Pradeep sir will tell you. So another class I have with you, even today night also, or tomorrow, if you just scan the question papers, in the next class you can tell me, but ma'am, this is the pattern we got.
Yes, ma'am, I have scanned already and I find there is a pattern.
Yes, and for you people, since you have made this request, I will also, after today's class, go through the question papers, and in the next class, when I meet, then I think I can give you some suggestion. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I have a request. Ma'am, I have gone through the MES 11 and 12 question papers. Still now, I have not completed MES 13, but after going to MES 11 and 12, I found certain topics which are quite hard, means for us to understand. So if you, ma'am, kindly take today's class on those topics, I think ma'am,
Dear child, listen to me. See, we don't have control over what is allotted to us. I have been allotted 13. You see, there are other teachers who had been allotted 11 and 12. So I cannot cross my limitation and take up somebody else's assignment.
MES 13 only, that if you take today, if you give the class on certain topics which we are not able to catch properly.
Tell me, okay, child, absolutely. That is why I'm here. Instead of myself giving an overall view, if you already have a list of quote unquote hard or difficult topics,
Yes, ma'am,
you tell me the topics. Yes, you tell me, name the topics. I will take them up first. Tell me.
Ma'am, I have not still gone through all the questions. Right now, I have completed MES 11 and 12 only. I have gone through all those questions. I have not. If someone can help, ma'am, see. Otherwise, ma'am, you yourself can tell which are important or which are topics which can be.
Listen to me. Be calm. Okay, be calm. First, you calm down. I have got your point, but you are contradicting yourself. Let me take this up from here. First of all, please understand that we all are unique individuals, right? So we all have our own levels of understanding. What is hard to me may be easy to you, and what is hard to you may be easy to me. So it is difficult, Joe. If I teach some topic, I will do that. I have understood. I will give a general discussion on the whole area and take up some important areas which I feel you need to understand. Okay? It will not simply be crammed from your study material. So you need some understanding also. Those areas I will explain from my own perception. That is what I feel is important. But at the end of the day, when you go through the study material yourself, there can be 5 other topics which I thought, okay, it's easy, let me not talk about it. But you shouldn't still find it difficult. So please go through that study mat, and then in the next class, apart from what I'm going to discuss today, according to my own understanding, apart from that, if there are some topics which you are finding difficult, please note them down and in the next class tell me so that I can explain them for you. Is that clear to all of you?
Thank you,
Yeah.
ma'am. It will be great.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank me. No need to thank me, dear. It's my job. So, MES 13 is all about learning and the learner. So, if we look at it, see the units and the blocks are divided. Some blocks are there about the learner, their features, their styles of learning, and how you can divide the learners on the basis of the different ways in which they learn. This is the subject matter of some of the blocks. And the most important, I mean, most important, but the difficult one, there is where there is a lot of theory. That portion is the learning theories. The other portion about what is learning, what kinds or categories of learners you can have. See, we are all learners, but how do we classify the learners and the learning style? Those are quite simple. You will see page after written. But if you just go through it, it is very simple because, as I said, we ourselves are learners. So let us start with the easy part and then we will move on to the learning theories, which calls for a bit of understanding. Which, if we don't finish today, we will definitely finish it in the next allotted class. Okay. So, starting with learning, first a basic concept. See, I will just give the overall basic concept. That much is there in the module. They will just go on explaining. They will write 10 lines to make matters easier for you. But the basic concept is what I'm going to tell you. After this, keeping this in your head, if you go through the module, you will see it's pretty simple. There is nothing hard in it. Okay. Now, what is learning? Learning is nothing but a modification of human behavior. I'm not talking of animals. If you talk of animals also, you see that an animal has learned to fetch the pepper. A dog has learned to take a somersault or sit down when ordered. We also say a child has learned about Indian independence, or a child has learned about addition and subtraction only by observing how he can successfully add and subtract. So, educationally speaking, learning is nothing but a change or a modification of observable behavior. Now, this is, as I said, observable behavior, something that you are observing. But there is much more to it because we know that human learning is not only imitation, but it also involves intelligence, many other internal factors. That is cognitive things. Cognitive matlab that is related to your brain processing. So those things are also to be understood, and this we will discuss in the learning theories. There are two categories of theories. One category of theory depending on behavior aspect of learning, that is whatever you can observe with your naked eyes. And the second category of learning theories will be concerned about the cognitive aspect, that is the brain thing, whatever aspects of brain or processing functioning of brain goes into learning, that is internal, which you can't see with your naked eye, but it goes on inside your student's head. So those two categories of learning theories we will do. But before that, now if you remember what is learning, it is modification of behavior. Now we come to the learner. Learner matlab the person who is learning. Now, what are the different categories on the basis of which we divide the learners or we classify the learners? First is on the the sensory modalities. Though it may be written a little what I'm telling as number one, maybe number three or four in your study map, but it does not matter. The whole thing is this. Now, first is the sensory modality or the preferences of the learners. Now, what are our sensory organs? Eyes, ears, right? Touch, that is skin. All these are the sensory organs of a human being. So, depending on that, there are certain learning styles. There are learners, which you will see, who learn better when they see something with their eyes. Like maybe you are explaining very well in class, but even after that, you may find that 4 or 5 children cannot understand what you are teaching very nicely. But while explaining, if you do some blackboard work, or if you show them a chart or a video clipping or something visual, then they will learn it. So, depending on that, you categorize them as visual learners. Okay, is this clear? So, one category of learning in our or this categorization depending on the sensory modalities or the sensory preferences. First category would be visual learners who learn better by seeing. That is visual input. Okay. So for them, you do blackboard work, you make really colorful charts, or you show them video clippings. Okay, anything visual. Again, the visual learners can be further classified into verbalists and imagists. Verbalist, very difficult apparently, but it's very simple. Verbalist means verb coming from the word verbosity or verbal, but it's words. Okay, so either you that what do you mean by visual words? Simple writing on the chart or teaching the chapter by giving them flow charts, tables. Think of our childhood. Some of us remembered the chapter better if we took running notes in form of tables and charts. For myself, when I read history, I always forgot many of the things. But when I made a table and a chart sort of thing in my note-taking copy, I remembered that better. And before the exam, I used to revise the chart only and the table only. Otherwise, if I read the pages of the book, then I used to forget. So that means I am a verbalist visual learner. I remember better through words, but not words which are written in form of lengthy paragraphs without any break or without any bullet or anything. So I am basically a visual learner who needs some visual input, but those inputs will be words arranged in a particular order. But while teaching, you will see that there is another category of visual learner. If you write a lot of words on the board or if you make a chart full of words, they will understand nothing. For them, you have to give them pictorial visual input. That is, you have to show them pictures. If you show them pictures or videos, then you will see it. So then we call them also visual learners, but they remember pictures better. So we call them imagists. Okay. So these are visual learners. Now, coming from your common sense, you can well understand. But if you learn, there is another category of learners who learn better if you tell them. I mean, if you listen to it. You must have seen lots of children. I, for myself, I have seen such students who, if you give them a book, they will read it, but they will complain that I cannot remember anything. But if you take the book from that student and if you tell them the gist of the uh, chapter, or if you even read out the chapter to them, they remember better. So these are all auditory learners. They remember better if the input is auditory, that is, if they listen to it instead of reading it. So depending on their motor preferences, these are all sensory organs, eyes, ears. So depending on that, there can be two types, visual and auditory. Okay. There is a third category called motor learners. These are very rare. These are motor learners or kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic, again, a very difficult word, but actually it's very simple. It means, kinesthetic means through motor activity, that is, use of hands and legs in action. So these learners are very less in number compared to auditory and visual learners, but they are there. That is, motor learners or kinesthetic style, those learners who have a kinesthetic style, for them, what do? We often, when we speak or when we teach something, we use a lot of physical action. Like, I cannot demonstrate because all videos are offline, but I can just give a very simple when nursery children or kindergarten children are taught rhymes, we always give them action with our hands, with our facial gestures, so that they can remember better. So these are the motor learners who remember better by using their gross motor muscles, okay, hands, legs, etc. So, like even for in class 5, 6, if you are teaching them English or any other language, for instance, you tell them open the door. Instead of saying open the door, I mean, you have to say open the door, but along with it, you point your finger or you point your hand at the door, giving them action that is physically showing them what to do. It always helps. As I said, these people are less in number, but they do exist. So for them, there should be a lot of physical activity along with learning. One very classic example you must have seen, everyone, I'm sure all of you have seen. Have you seen students who learn, from their books by swinging back and forth? Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and in my absolutely in my next apartment, almost I can see the apartment from my window. There is quite an adult child, I mean a girl, adult in the sense senior classes. I can make out from her looks. She does not swing back and forth, but whenever she's turning anything, we I can see that she's pacing up and down. She puts down in one place. I've seen lots of students like that. If they don't understand the body is still, then they won't be able to remember anything. So that means their motor movement is related to the way they learn. That is another style of learning. So these are kinesthetic or motor learners. Okay. Apart from these sensory preferences or sensory modalities, there are different cognitive styles on the basis of which we identify learners. So these are all very simple. Names sound difficult, but whole matter is very simple. Like you can classify as impulsivity versus reflectivity. Impulsive learner, this is done, this sort of classification has been done by J. Kagan in 1971. It is impulsive learners and reflective learners. Then from the name itself, you can understand that impulsive learners will do what? Instead of going deep into the lesson, okay, and really thinking about it over and over, 10 times before answering, impulsive children will just instantly try to use their intuition, their common sense, their experiences with what you are saying, and they will promptly try to answer you by relating their intuition, their instant understanding. That is their impulsive by nature. That is one style of learning. Sometimes they learn very well. Sometimes there are topics which they miss or they tell the wrong, give you the wrong answer. Then you have to tell them that be patient, think again. There is something you are missing. Okay, there can be two results. Sometimes they give you the correct answer, they grasp very quickly. Sometimes they, just pass superficially. They can't go deep inside. Then you have to help them. Reflective learners, on the other hand, they will never give you a quick answer. Whenever you are teaching, they will, whatever they listen to or whatever they see, they think 100 times over in their head. They try to, instead of making any blind guess or instead of intuitively guessing the answers, they will just think about it to solve the problem logically through restructuring, through critical reasoning. Okay, and then they will try to derive a conclusion. Another classification of cognitive styles, what are they? They will see that there are learners who use a scanning technique. Scanning means very simple. I mean, whenever I study, I always try to find out shortcuts. The word scanning. The moment you read the word scanning, don't try to memorize what is scanning. Just think of CT scan you do in hospitals. CT scan, not what? They do a minute, they take a minute picture of your brain or any. So scanning means the person who goes deep into of a hypothesis, maybe a information, and then they will scan that information and try to find out the minutest detail about that topic and then learn something from it. And there are focusing types, that is, they will take up one attribute at a time, okay, and then they will focus on it, try to relate with other attributes, and try to synthesize all of them together and find something, or find a whole out of it. Okay, then many attributes, they will focus on them and try to find some commonalities and maybe derive at a conclusion from it. Okay. Next is holistic versus realist style. Again, you will think, oh God, what difficult names. Nothing. Serial matlab what? One after another. We say, na, yeah, you write it serially. That means one after another. That means serialist style of learning means these on topic Then after that, they will take up another topic, part by part, they will learn. And holistic learners, holistic means complete, that is the whole thing, whatever you were saying or whatever is in the chapter. Actually, we are in a holistic discussion now. We are not going line by line, paragraph by paragraph serially.
Overall.
Yes,
Overall.
yes, overall.
Overall.
Absolutely, absolutely correct. You scan the whole thing overall, you form an idea. What is actually, you make a gist in your brain. Okay, you are very quick in making gist and you understand what is the basic topic. After that, there can be many explanations, many explanations, etc. But holistic matlab, at one glance, first you go through the whole thing once with full concentration and you get the gist of it, gist of the matter. So two learning styles. All of us have different learning styles. So for instance, my sister was being a serial learner. If you just hop skip jump, she used to feel very lost. And but I am myself a used to do it stage. I don't have the patience, to go line by line. Storybook, I would read it very fast, and after giving of the whole the gist of the matter, and then if I feel that there are some areas which were not very clear, then I go back to those chapters and read again. So that is a holistic style of learning. Okay. And there are some other categories like field dependence, field independence. If you read the book, you will understand they're very easy. Field dependence means from the name itself, you can understand that whenever there is a problem, the problem matlab the matter they are studying. So whenever there is a problem statement or some content which the learners are trying to learn, then they will first focus, the field dependent learners will first focus on the surface features, that is every point that is written, how the matter has been presented, they will fight and struggle with it. And they are deeply influenced by it. So if you give a field dependent learner an English text which is written in very tough English, then instead of trying to, they will try to understand each and meaning of each and every word of that line. And every time they stumble, they will run to a dictionary and try to find out the meaning of that word. And until and unless they have understood the whole meaning of the full, or all the lines of the full passage, they will not learn anything from that passage. On the other hand, so they're dependent on the field. Okay. And field independent learner means they make their own notes, they grasp the key ideas. That is, when they are reading the passage, maybe there are 3, 4 words they don't understand. That is written in tough English. But what they will do, they will try to guess the meaning of those 2, 3 words from the preceding words and the following words. Exactly what we,
Contextual.
yes, depending, yeah, you can say context. Not exactly overall context, not exactly the context of that particular sentence, but the overall essence of the paragraph. From that, they will guess the meaning. So, they will restructure their understanding to suit the end goal. That is, whatever is the goal of the whole paragraph, that they will grasp. So, they're field independent. Okay. So whereas you can say that field depend, why I told you not to use of context, because context is a tricky word. If you talk of context, that may be the sentence related context also. That is the nitty gritty of the sentence. No, that is something that the field dependent learners will be. Field independence learners, yes, you can say they take the context, but context of what? The overall paragraph or the overall lesson. The whole context they will take, just like when we watch a film. Maybe Hindi film, I'm not very good in Hindi. I don't understand many of the words, but by looking at the whole picture, whole movie, I can tell you what it is all about. So that means I'm field independent to some extent. Are you clear about it? Is
Yes,
this
ma'am.
clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So see, this completes more or less this thing about the different learning styles. If you read, first you go, we look at the body, this and that, but actually it's this. So this is then we so quickly move on to the next thing. That is, this is important. What are the factors? We have now also learned what is learning. We have also learned that how many types of learners are there, how we categorize them. Now, quickly, we will see that what are the factors. There are certain factors which must be affecting learning. Like all of us are learning constantly. I am also engaged in academic learning. You are also learning now continuously through ODA. But all of us are not learning in the same way. We are all learning. That's true. But we are not learning up to the same level or the same way. So there must be certain factors which must be affecting our learning outcome, right? So what are those factors? There can be no, there can be 10,000 factors, but there are certain important factors which have been identified by you and they have been given in your study plan. So we will discuss about those factors only. First and foremost, motivation. Okay. So what is motivation? There are 10,000 definitions again, but often obviously there are those the most important. So I must have read about it. Maslow, Wieland, okay, we know McClelland. These are some of the very crucial theories of motivation, but all of which are not just theories. So, but all of us understand something very commonly that is, motivation is a force, a drive, right? Maybe force is not the correct word, drive. In Bengali, we say tarona, as if something is pursuing you from inside, right? When the drive comes to you, then we feel so until and unless there is motivation, learning, learning won't be complete or won't be meaningful for us. So about motivation, if this is what motivation is, that drive comes from what? Some sort of need. Okay, all these theories, Maslow's hierarchy of need theory, then Wiener's theory and McClelland's theory. These three theories are different. If you read them, they're pretty simple. You will read what is there in the theory. If you find them difficult, you can explain or send notes. But thing is that theories are simple. But what you need to note while reading the theories is that there is this common factor. All three theories of motivation are telling you that motivation is a drive which is generated by a need. Okay? Human beings must be experiencing some otherwise they won't be motivated to do anything. You will not be motivated to get up from your bed or sofa and walk up to the fridge and bring out a sandwich until and unless there is a hunger need. If you don't feel hungry, you will not do it. So need should be there. The motivation can be of two types. Very basically speaking, if you look at human beings, you will understand everything is there in our lives. How many types of motivation are there? Intrinsic and extrinsic. And this is very simple to understand. No need to. You see, sometimes if you think of some students in your life, maybe in your house, your younger sister or children, I don't know. I know a few children who are like this. Most children, in fact, in schools, where they don't feel motivated to study. So what we or what we parents do, we constantly try to give them some pep talk. You have to do this, you drive a car, then you can go on foreign trips, this, that, or otherwise. So many times we are lecturing. That is means what we are trying to influence them verbally or by giving examples to do something which they don't feel like doing. That means we are trying to motivate them. But the motivation for that student is coming from outside, from a parent, from a teacher, from a friend. Sometimes this is through verbal talk. Sometimes it may be through some incidents, like two friends are there, very close friends, maybe two girls. Both of them get married and they're happily settled in family life. But suddenly, one of the girls, even after having children and a family, she's taking up a course, maybe through ODL mode. Okay, she's studying again. And maybe after finishing the course, she has got into teaching. So by looking at her, the previous girl, the first girl was not feeling motivated to do anything at all. She was happily in her family, settled in her family life, saying that, okay, I have so many family duties, how can I study? But now, simply by looking at her friend who has done this, she feels that, okay, if she has done it, wow, then I can also do it. She feels motivated to go for the studies to and maybe she gets moves or strives towards the teaching career. So this is also motivation, but this is coming from outside factor. So what would help? Extrinsic, absolutely. Either through pep talk, verbal inspiration or motivation by others, or by looking at some external incidents. But there can be some intrinsic motivation also, self motivation, which actually we say that is a key factor for successful learning. Any successful person who is a very good learner and has really excelled in learning, in most cases, is intrinsically motivated. Intrinsically means that no one is motivating that person, but that person from inside is feeling motivated because of some inner need. Okay. Like say for instance, there is a but continuously passes in with person is not rejected or in one school after another. Maybe because the spoken English is not good. So no one is telling that person to do anything. But that person in doing that person is an intrinsically motivated person. He or she will he or she will not feel depressed. He or she will feel okay. I'm doing studies. I know my subject very well. The only thing I can be write good English. But when I'm speaking English, I'm not very good. So only this portion is something I need to improve upon. So let me join a spoken English course. This whole thought process is actually triggered by the person himself. It is coming from inside. There is no depression, but there is a very clear logical thinking that what is my weak area and I have to improve upon it. So to be successful. So this is intrinsic knowledge. Now with this, I will just jump self-concept and come to the next point, next important point, locus of control. See, again, same thing. You look at the locus of control, such a big thing. What's a big thing? It is intrinsic knowledge. We are control, yes or no? We know control.
Yes.
Okay, control means controlling something, simple. So here also controlling means controlling something. What? Controlling our own thoughts, our own personality. Locus means center. So there are two kinds of people in the world. For some people, the control is always outside. Like if they, just the example I just gave. A good student, academically sound, knows the subject well, but spoken English is poor. So that person passes the written exam, but every time gets disqualified or rejected in the interview. So, or vice versa. That person, if the control is outside, if he attributes his locus means center of control, outside his own self, instantly the person will say, this is beyond my control. This is my parents' fault. They should have sent me to an English medium school. They sent me to a Bengali medium school. See, that is the result. I know my subject so well, but I can't perform well. Had I been in English medium school, then I could have done it. Now what to do? My life is a waste. So that means the control is in the hand of his parents. He's blaming someone else. You must have seen many people who keep on blaming their destiny. What can I do? Amar Kopal. It's my destiny. God has given me this punishment. My they go on reading horoscopes. So that means they have no control over their own lives. They always, whenever something bad happens to them or even something good happens to them, then they always blame or attribute that happening to something external, which is beyond their control. So these people, when they need motivation, what kind of motivation do they need? Tell me from your common sense. Extrinsic. Absolutely. Absolutely. See, you have absolutely very good. See, so you have all understood the modules so well. It's very simple. Everything is connected. You read in a very calm and quiet manner. Within 2 hours, your whole module will be complete. It's everything very so it's absolutely correct, all of you. So that will be extrinsic motivation. That is a factor of learning. But if the locus of control is intrinsic, internal locus of control, let us take the same example. The person has passed in the written, but he has been rejected in the interview because of poor spoken English. If the locus of control is inside, then the person will think like this: that okay, I have passed in the written exam. That means I know my subject very well. My results and percentages are all very good. I could answer all the questions in the interview, but I could not express well in English. That was my only weak point. Okay, fine. If I could do so much in life, get so good high percentages, pass in the written exam, this much also I can do. Let me take control of the situation. Let me join a 6 months or 1 year spoken English course. Next year I will appear for the interview again. I'm sure I will crack it. So only that is my only drawback. Let me rectify it. So this person is taking total control of the situation in his own hands because the locus of control here is internal. So here, as you all have understood by now, motivation will be intrinsic. So these are two important factors, separate factors, motivation and locus of control, which affect learning, as you can well understand. The first person will never learn because he always feels that destiny or fate or his parents or Bengali medium school, whatever, he will find something or the other to blame and say, "Je, amar kichu korani, I cannot do anything. They have done it to me." Okay. But that means that is affecting his learning. But for the second person, whose locus of control is internal and whose motivation is intrinsic, for that person, learning will be more effective. Levels of aspiration naturally is related to this. Self concept, something you need to understand again, but something which is related to this locus of control, motivation, they're all related. Now, what is self concept? There is a difference between the two words. You have to realize that there is a difference between the two words self concept and self image. There is another theory on this, but I think that is not in your syllabus, so let's not go into it. It's a psychological theory, but it is a very important to understand that what is the difference between self image and self concept. Self image means how I see myself, how you see yourself and what is your conception of yourself are two very different bodies. How I see may be delusional. In fact, I think 100% of us present today, none of us see ourselves as ugly, dishonest, shrewd, maneuvering. We all think that we are perfect, right? That is our self image. And if someone calls us bad names, that no, you are a dishonest person, you are such a lazy girl, or you are such a good for nothing boy, then we try to infuriate it and we try to quarrel. We start a fight because that is self image. But what is self concept? Concept is much deeper. To understand simply, concept means to be aware of one's strength as well as one's weaknesses or weak spots. So that affects learning to a great extent. And there is another dimension to self concept that is also important. Just as there should be a very realistic assessment of one's own weakness and strength, at the same time, self concept means there should also be a very clear understanding of how much I can achieve. That is a very important factor for learning. You may feel confused that what is life? But think of it in a very simple way. A child who has been scolded repeatedly since the primary classes and has been called names by a maths teacher and constantly rebuked you are very dumb, you cannot do mathematics nicely, you don't have the brains for it. That child will develop a phobia and a false self image that I am stupid, other boys are smart, and I can never be good in maths. Whereas maybe the IQ level of the child is average. It's not below average, it's average. With kind teaching or encouragement, maybe the child could have done much, much better in mathematics. So it is about self concept. A child, same IQ. If the child gets a different kind of environment where the child learns, has a self concept that okay, I am not a topper, I cannot crack IIT type of maths, but fine, as far as board exams are concerned, yes, I can do very well. I can do that much. That child will develop a different level of self confidence and will be able to do much better. But see, the IQ levels were same. So self concept here is very important. Attitude and socio-cultural factor. So yes, you want to ask something?
Yes, ma'am. Sorry for the interruption.
No, no, no. Sorry,
But
please
I want
ask.
to ask, yes, ma'am.
Really?
Is self-image only positive or both positive and negative? It could be positive, only positive, or
No, no, no,
both
not at
positive
all.
and negative.
See,
Because negative self-image is okay.
no, you heard the example I gave just now, no? That is an example of negative self-image.
Yes, yes,
Because the child,
yes,
I gave that
yes,
example,
yes.
and the
That's
child,
why I wanted to.
yes, yes. So self-image can be wrong. The child did not get a chance to develop a self concept. Here, due to repeated rebuking and repeated chastising and intimidation, the child from very childhood had formed this negative self image that I don't have brains to solve mathematics. I am a dumb person. That is a wrong self image inflicted by external factors. Okay? Is that clear to you now? I hope
Yes,
so.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Thank you.
No, don't be so formal, please. Okay. So now, what are the socio-cultural views of motivation? It is not so difficult to understand. I mean, if I just give a small example, then you will be able to understand. Like every society or every culture has their own priorities. Let's give a very simple example. Like in some societies, maybe we'll in some societies, it is felt that women are mothers. That is, they have the motherly instinct very well because they are biologically made to carry children. So they have that instinct for nurturing and caring. So women are better suited for jobs like teaching, nursing, maybe doctors, but not for IPS or maybe military or pilots or something like that. It's a cultural view because reality is that we know there are many mothers, even biological mothers, who are very cruel to their own children or to their own, their sister's children or something, just because they are women. It's not that all of them are very kind or very compassionate or very nurturing. There are lots of mothers who have children, they're having fun, they're having like puppies or so. I'm not blaming anyone, but the socio-cultural assumption that men are cruel and women are insignificant and very good at being better for teachers. And men will be better policemen or better pilots or army men. These are socio-cultural assumptions. Now, this affects learning in what way? I mean, intelligence can be multiple, but suppose a boy is not mathematically oriented, but the boy is literally has a literary inclination or is an artist. Think of Shoboshachi, the famous dress designer. Actually, he's a tailor, right? He or Sanjeev Kapoor, he's a very big chef. But socio-culturally, we think that cooking is a woman's domain. So today, Sanjeev Kapoor or Shoboshachi were celebrities. That is why we take their names with pride. But when they were children or maybe in school, can you imagine? I mean, if you had a boy at your home who is not good in mathematics, who is not good in any science, who does not want to go out and play with guns or who don't want to play cricket, but who just wants to sit at home and sew or stitch or maybe enter the kitchen and cook like his mother. So we always keep telling them social culture that this is a girl's work. What kind of a boy are you? You go out and play football, you go out and play cricket. Why are you cooking in the kitchen? And even worse is why are you sitting and stitching a garment, a gown, a lady's gown or a salwar suit? Why are you stitching? It's a girl's job. We keep on scolding them. So that affects learning. That is a classic example. That is socio-cultural assumptions actually kills the talents or the brain orientation towards academic subjects in which they could have excelled. Now we got one Shubhashachi, one Sanjeev Kapoor, one Rituparna Ghosh, one maybe one Pramod Krishnan or one Vinay Bandyopadhyay, but we don't know there are thousands and thousands of boys like that who are not encouraged to go to literature or maybe economics. All of them are pushed towards engineering and doctor or maybe a military. But English being one we feel socioculturally that if girls take up okay. But if boys are studying Bengali honors or Hindi honors, that means studies. That is the general assumption. So these are some of the socio-cultural views or factors which does affect learning. Okay, to some extent. Is this Olivia?
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, can we write our these type of examples if a certain concept comes in exam?
I don't see why not. Actually, Indian stability is so beautiful. That actually, this very, I mean, the example that I gave, exactly that is not there, but the examples that they give is also very simple. I mean, that is why if you self-study material, if you really so if they are doing
Keeping everything in mind, whichever in your that's not possible. That's why I'm asking.
no. That's what I mean. I think you missed my point. I'm saying that whatever example I'm giving, or whatever example you may be thinking, exactly that sort of example they may not be giving. but they also give pretty simple examples. So if I feel as a teacher that if a student gives some other simple example which is not exactly what you study now, that there should not be an issue, rather they would appreciate it because they also write the study material in that way, right?
Okay, 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 ma'am. Thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes. And another word, technical word I did not mention, but again, find it difficult. That's what I'm saying. It's a technical word with self-concept, self-image. Okay. So another important word is self-esteem. I think all of you already know what self-esteem is. And self-esteem, self-confidence, all of this depends on self-image and self-concept. No. So self-esteem is a matter of measurable component of self-concept. Okay. If a person does not respect himself or herself, that means you know, if you have self-confidence, then that will definitely affect the studies. Like I said in mathematics, if the negative self-image is that I am dumb, I can never be good in maths. Okay, that has been inflicted upon the child by the learner since childhood. That means the child has no self-esteem. That means the child by the learner will never be able to learn properly mathematics. Okay, yeah. So these are some of the factors. Because of control, I have already explained to you all these things are just written page after page in your study mat, but these are the main things. Okay. Now we have, after explaining or discussing all this, we come to another important factor or another important dimension of learning, that is environment. All of us must have heard from our childhood that there are two things which are very important for environment, for learning, that is heredity and environment. Now, coming to this heredity stuff, there are some other important aspects or factors which affect learning. Those are, as you can well understand, as I said right in the beginning of this lecture, now that all of us have different levels, cognitive levels. Now, what do I mean? Cognitive levels. Simple thing, cognitive matlab means your brain, your academic ability, right? So, what are the identifiers of that? What are the determinants? First of all, is intelligence. Yes or no? How do we measure intelligence? IQ, right? So there are different theories of intelligence. The most intelligence study will take some of the important theories, which are the factors of or the significant theories related to intelligence. There are many factors which are identified. How intelligence is measured, how IQ is measured. Those I can theories like Alfred Binet, we have the Simon Binet scale. Then we have Charles Spearman's scale, that is known as the he actually defined in intelligence as a cumulative two types of factors, general factor and specific factor. Okay, G factor and then specific factors he called S factors. Now you don't have the whole theory in your study mat, so you don't need to know. You just remember the small names like Charles Spearman. Then there is another American psychologist, Thurstone, who said that intelligence is nothing but the seven interrogative factors, which we call primary mental abilities. And if depending on these seven primary mental abilities, we have intelligence. The levels of intelligence vary. And for the primary mental abilities, seven factors are verbal comprehension, verbal listening, that is correct, how best you can express yourself, inductive reasoning, then memory, how much perceptual speed you have, that is, you are seeing something or reading something, how fast you can grasp it, how fast you can form a perception. So, some of these basic things, like Hearthstone said, all these things you see, there's nothing much to explain. You have to mug up, you just have to see. But there are different psychologists like Sternberg, Atherstone, Spearman, then Piaget. The detailed theories are not there. Thanks God, you don't have to mug up the detailed theories, but you just read the names, remember the names, and what are the main things they said. Like if it is Thurston, no tension, just remember he mentioned seven primary mental abilities. If it is Spearman, just don't take any tension, just remember that he mentioned G factor, S factor. Now, general factor, special factor. Okay, these are the things you have to remember. Now, Binet, again, Alfred Binet, that Simon Binet scale they developed to measure the IQ. These are some of the things to remember. So, apart from intelligence, there are other factors which affect learning. Motivation, we said, self concept, we said, intelligence, aptitude. Along with intelligence, you may have, but you may not have any aptitude for teaching, or you may not have mathematical aptitude. You may have literary aptitude or historical aptitude. That also will affect your learning. Then, what kind of goal you are setting in life? Then, what kind of, this is important, readiness and maturation. See, in learning theories, which I will discuss in the next class with you, the very old theory by Thorndike, it started, and in the modern cognitivist theory also this same concept is there, that until and unless the learner is ready to learn, learning can never happen, no matter how well you teach. Like I told you, even in case of motivation, it's the same thing. If you are not hungry, if there is no hunger need, then you will never get up from the sofa and walk to the fridge. Similarly, if there is no readiness, mentally you are not ready to learn or accept what is there, or what is being said in the lecture, no matter how good a book is or how good a lecture is, you will never learn anything. So readiness, and that also requires a certain degree of maturation. In the sense, we have to give biological maturation skill for the learners. Like if you try to describe the meaning of patriotism to a 6-year-old child, he will not understand. Simple. Because at that age, brain is not mature enough to process any abstract thinking. Patriotism is something which is abstract. Like if you show the 6-year-old child an apple and says, "Oh, this is an apple," the child will understand because he can see the apple, he can touch the apple, he can even taste the apple. But patriotism, no matter how much you explain, the child will not be able to understand because at that level he can only understand something he can touch, he can see, he can feel. Kindness, patriotism, basic values, ethics. These are some of the things a 6-year or 5-year old will not understand. So even if you're teaching in class, then the subject matter should be such that there is less abstraction and more concrete things to understand. But when the same child is 15-year-old, 16-year-old, then if you teach that abstractions, assumptions, abstractions, abstract concepts, something you cannot see, touch, or something which is not concrete, but you have to imagine, you have to understand from your little brain, then that 16-year-old boy will be able to do it. So this level of maturity is very important also. Attitudes and values, level of aspiration and goal is more or less same. Learning style we have discussed, socio-cultural determinants we have also discussed and given an example. With girls and boys, what kind of careers they go for. Now, environment we are discussing, there's a whole unit on it, but even towards the end of the class, I will tell you, get scared. Whole unit is there, but it's very, very simple. That is what constitutes your environment. First is your physical environment, air you are breathing, what is there around you, whether you are sitting beside a dustbin, or you are sitting in a nice study room, or you are sitting in a secure family room, or you are sitting on the floor. So physical environment actually has a great influence on your learning, because if you are not in a secure physical environment, you're sitting somewhere where there is fear of assault or fear of something breaking down on your head, will you be able to learn properly? Naturally, no. So physical environment matters significantly a bit. If physical environment is not favorable for the child to use the wheelchair and get to class, that will definitely affect learning, right? If the physical environment is such that you cannot sit and study because there is a bad weather coming or stench coming, it can never happen. It will definitely affect your concentration in learning. Next is socio-cultural environment. I think the example we discussed is a clear enough example. Like socio-cultural, matlab we have discussed the effect of gender, right, in a particular social setup or cultural setup. There can be influence of social class. If you think of the previous days, even today, in certain remote areas, we hear that sometimes they hit the headlines that the Dalit or the marginalized people, the scheduled people, reserved category people, they are being denied. Even Ambedkar, we have heard about his struggle as a student. They were not supposed to be admitted, even if they were admitted to school, they were supposed to sit on the same benches with the Brahmin students. So caste discrimination and apartheid was there in South Africa. So if there is effect of social class on learning, that is there. So that is very important factor. That will also hinder learning. Another is culture. I mean, along with gender, I think what we discussed that also talks of culture, right? There are certain courses which are not suitable for girls, not suitable for boys, or not suitable for us, culturally not accepted, certain kinds of study. There may be certain kinds of study which we don't culturally accept. There are some things you do not culture doesn't permit you, or your culture doesn't permit. So then that will definitely affect law. Can you give an example of something that any is anything coming to social exclusion is very social exclusion? Oma, of course. We talked about effect of social class. I talked of Dalits,
Yes,
right?
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So that means, ma'am, the vulnerability also the part of this topic, ma'am. If you take this vulnerability, ma'am, that
Listen, listen, child. Any kind of exclusion makes you vulnerable. Jara marginalized, those people who are marginalized or socially excluded, they only constitute the vulnerable category. Of course, they are vulnerable, right? So vulnerable is just a term, but actually it's the same thing. Exclusion মানেই তো তুমি vulnerable হয়ে গেলে। And exclusion can be in terms of gender, it can be in terms of your physical disability, it can be in terms of your economic backwardness, it can be anything. জাত পাত anything হতে পারে। But I am asking a social class তোমরা বুঝতে পারবে, gender is also a little will understand. But I am asking, can you just quickly, the class is ending, can you quickly think of anything how culture affects your learning? Cultural practice? Can we put sex education? Yes, very good. Excellent. আমি ঠিক ওই লাইনে ভাবছিলাম, but I didn't get this example. I was thinking of fine arts, like where you have to do studies, which is an integral part of fine arts for portrait and human figure drawing. It is a part of the curriculum. But if you are learning that, okay, so then if your culture does not permit nudity even for the sake of studying, like Michelangelo, we know also in his sculptures, such muscular details are there. It is lifelike. মানে একজন ডাক্তারও অবাক হয়ে যাবে the way actually he dissected dead bodies to see how human muscles are present in order to make the sculptures and paintings. We know that. And in art colleges, all of us are learning to draw human figure. The nude study is a very integral part of that education. But maybe in our country or maybe in some other country, due to religion or due to some other social inhibition, maybe such practice or such education is not permitted. As your friend correctly pointed out, sex education, ওটা শুনে মনে হলো, I don't know what sex education is, but about the menstrual cycle, for instance, which is an integral part of human life. It's a biological process without which reproduction will never happen in the whole animal kingdom. But there are so many taboos about it and social inhibitions in certain cultures. So if you have to ask a teacher if there is, it is there in the syllabus, and if a teacher tries to explain what is menstrual cycle, how it is a biological process, what are the precautions to be taken, this and that, then socially in some societies, in not all societies, due to cultural factors, that kind of education may be stopped. Or that can lead to the partial knowledge of the students. They may have false ideas. Boys especially, they have all sorts of, like, what should I say, incomplete ideas. And then there can be other different, like, taboos. They can think it's a dirty thing, like we see that in North countries, that so many controversies are going on all the time. And those are cultural factors, right? Social stigma. Stigma due to culture, no? It's not happening all over the world. It is happening in some cultures. That is because that kind of education is not given in school. If some teachers have a curriculum, starts that, then if the culture is a bit conservative, they will not accept it. They will think the government is doing very bad thing, and government also in fear of losing the okay, that is a cultural factor. So not the least is classroom environment. We know that classroom is a microcosm of society. So the classroom should be free from any exclusion, vulnerability, as your friend said, any gender bias, any cultural bias, anything. Classroom should be inclusive in the full sense of everything. All culture, all religion, all socioeconomic background, all gender, everything. So classroom environment is also very, very important in terms of attitude, psychology, physical factor also. Remember, you think of your own schools and colleges. How many schools and colleges have that space in the classroom where a wheelchair-bound student can easily navigate through the class? Between the benches, there is very narrow space. So if a person is coming in wheelchair, many colleges and schools have so they can't even come to the class. So that so physical environment, then the attitude, psychology of the teacher, psychology of the students, the overall environment, cultural factors of the school, how much ragging, bullying, there are still Rohit Vemu and so many other students committing suicide, even in the educational institutes of India, right? In the premier institutes. So the classroom environment is also a very crucial factor for learning. So this is more just learning what is learning, what are styles, what are the factors affecting learning. This is the whole story, very simple, interesting story. But for that, so many pages have been written. But since review SLM is very key, now that you have the whole picture in your mind, just go through casually. You will see and remember everything. Learning
Ma'am,
theories.
you have explained in a very simple manner.
You all are very intelligent.
Wonderfully explained, ma'am.
No, you very intelligent and adult people, but at a first glance, when you see so many movies, maybe after they told the same, we feel that we have so many books out there how to read. But this is the whole story. You go through it now. Any questions, next class you ask, I'll explain. And in the next class, if you don't ask any questions, I'll go ahead with the learning theory. Some of your whole thing. MES. Okay, children? So happy studying and stay for your attention. This will be find difficult in the next class you ask. Okay? Good. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.